Welcome to Focus on Claims with Ernie Bray, CEO of ACT.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Awesome,
Doing great,
Ernie.
Ernie.
How are you?
Good to
Yeah,
see you.
good getting the week going here. It's going off pretty good. Been kind of hot down here lately, but I just actually got back from Santa Cruz. I was out visiting my aunt and uncle and went to the boardwalk. And I hadn't been up there in a long time. Gosh, it was like really since I went to college, and then I worked at obviously AAA CSAA. And this is really kind of the genesis really of this show today. I mean, I saw what you guys were doing out there, and I was kind of really excited because I got my start at CSAA like 27 years ago, working in a district office. And, frankly, it was some of the best training I ever had. There's a guy named Rob Rudder, sat at my desk. I don't know, for a couple weeks, it felt like, but he was giving me the insights of everything. And really, I think that training was the foundation that really kind of started my claims career. So when I saw what you guys were doing, I really wanted to find out more about it. But before we get going, I got Joey.daryanani and Jason.spafford of CSAA Specialized Services on today. Welcome aboard, guys.
Hey, thanks very much. In your comments, two things. One, I want to say, how dare you not show up at my house in Northern California if you were in the neighborhood. So
Oh, man.
I'll let you off the hook on that one, but I thought it was important for me to mention it. The second thing you said was district offices, which really brought me back to my roots. So loving that you remember those days. And number three is Rob Rudder, and I'll let Jason speak to Rob. Jason still works with Rob today, numerous years later. We love Rob, and I'll have Jason sort of do that. But introducing myself, Joey.daryanani, I just celebrated my 38th year with CSAA, loving every minute of it. And just by quick background, I think I want to have a little fun with this. I came to the U.S. from the Philippines. I'm not from the Philippines, but Indian. Came to the U.S. in 1984, and I paid an agency to get me my first job at CSAA in April of 1985.
Wow.
And at that time, this was my temporary job until I got my real job. And we all know what happened since. So with that, I currently lead our newest subsidiary, CSA Specialized Services. And it was as a result of saving jobs during the pandemic, we decided to go into the contact tracing business, which I think you're aware aligns with the community that we serve. It is all about our brand, and put up a services company since then that is focused on call center support, training as a service. And one thing near and dear to my heart is Claims TPA, which I think you're aware, CSAA leads the industry in many of the areas in end-to-end claims management.
I'm excited to hear all about it today, really. And you know what? We got Jason here. And Jason, I knew of you. We kind of knew each other at Cal Lutheran. And it's funny, all these years go by and we end up in the same industry. How'd you get in this thing?
Yeah, it's funny. Back to those same district office days, Ernie. I actually started right about the same time, I think, at CSA as you. I just celebrated my 27th anniversary here.
Wow.
And I had moved to South Lake Tahoe from Southern California, and always vacationed up there, loved it, decided on a whim, right? Didn't have a lot of responsibility yet. Hey, I'm going to go do the sort of irresponsible thing in a way and go move to a tourist destination. I still needed a job though, and I actually answered an ad in the classified ads in the newspaper. That's how long ago it was. That's how you found a job back then. And there was an underwriting position for AAA, for CSAA at that time in the South Lake Tahoe district office, and interviewed for that job. Got that job, a whopping $1,600 a month, I think was my salary at the time. And I've been at CSAA ever since, and primarily focused in the training space, which I'll look forward to talking to you more about today, for about the last, almost 18 years. Although started in kind of the operations space and did all kinds of claims roles. I've been in the learning and development field now, in partnership and in tandem with insurance and claims handling now for a long time.
That's awesome. And I think that's really this training part of the game we'll talk about later is, I think, so essential in today's environment with, people leaving the industry and new people coming in. I think it's absolutely exciting to talk about because that's the fundamentals. I'm a big believer in fundamentals. But, I remember back when I was out there doing lot inspector, we would do things like that. And you were using manuals to write estimates and taking Polaroids. We've been around a long time. What have you seen? Would you say would be the biggest factor? I'll start with you, Joey, that's really changed in the industry usually, but over the last years of, 25 years, 30 years, what have you seen that you think was big?
It's very interesting that you asked that. To me, the technology and pace of change is accelerating at the fastest pace I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I envy folks writing estimates today where they just pick up the parts and click on it on a tablet and generate estimates, while you, Jason, and I had to have the clipboard that we used to measure the damages on the panel and write manual estimates with the motor books stacked on the desk.
That's right.
Today, we have electric vehicles, EVs, and we have a client today that are in the AV space, autonomous vehicles. They're on the road today. And who would have thought that we would see this in our lifetime? And not only are we seeing it in our lifetime, but the pace where that is accelerating has been completely phenomenal. Like I said, we have a taxi client in San Francisco. They are growing like crazy. In fact, this week they were just approved to yet focus on additional growth. That comes with good and bad things as far as I'm concerned, right? So that technology is out there, but there are implications around, think of prices of the sensors and video equipment that the adjusters are not familiar with today, both in the estimate writing part of the business and also subrogation. What does product liability have to do with how we've evaluated claims in the casualty space in all these years? Without worrying about how do we train, which is something I've asked Jason to really think about. How do we train our new adjusters on product liability and preservation of evidence and all those things that we've not had to consider in auto before?
Right, there's so much. Now it's changing,
Yeah, our most inexperienced people are the ones we put at first notice of loss. And now we got to train them product liability and preservation of evidence and all those things because it matters if the case eventually gets tried.
Well, you got bumpers now that were just a simple bumper. Now this bumper is so complex, like you said, it's got cameras and sensors, all these things built into it. It makes what we would consider a really small loss back in the old days. This could be thousands and thousands of dollars on something very simple. And from Jason, from your spot, what do you think? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'll talk maybe a little bit more from just that lens or that angle of training. How much have we seen change in the learning and development field in the training space to kind of keep up with just changes in general and changes in the insurance industry and in claims handling, from the days of, everything being in person and flying and traveling people to large physical sites where they would, literally hands-on learn body shop and repair techniques to, walking through and inspecting, in a mock home to today. We're able to replicate all of those kinds of capabilities entirely online, entirely digital, entirely virtual streaming, that has enabled us to reach now employee audiences and client audiences that are now disparately located all over the country, right? People aren't working from, large center-based locations anymore. In many instances, they're working from home. And so, we've seen a dramatic change in how we reach people, how training is designed and developed, and how we're not only keeping up with the change in what we have to train and all of the informational and skill and knowledge side, but pairing that with the dramatic change in technology that also is supporting how we're training.
And I want to ask Joey this question. When we talked about technology here, the technology is advancing. You have all these tools. You have AI introducing into the game here now. You have all these automation tools. But I'm a big believer that even though these tools are coming out, they're great assistive tools. But this insurance business is a human business. People suffered a loss. They're stressed out. They may not know the process. How do you, in your opinion, how do you balance that and still retain that the touch of that personal touch with humanity, but also maximize technology? What do you think about that?
Ernie, to me, technology is a supplemental piece
Mm-hmm.
to your core as you handle claims, right? So, given our brand, it is in our DNA to provide our policyholders and now specialized services clients with the best possible service on the planet,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what we're known for. And my opinion is that people that get into losses, whether it was a rock that hit your windshield or a significant injury claim or anything in the middle, people want to tell you their story.
Mm-hmm.
So the adoption of digital first notice of loss hasn't taken off. I mean, people in the industry tell me, it's about 5 or 10% of our core business that
Yeah.
goes through a digital FNOL process. The reality is it's still a people business. They still want to tell their story. They want to be assured everything will be okay. And that has been our DNA. That's why we exist at AAA.
Well, that kind of is what I remember doing when I was in the district office. I'd sit there literally at that desk, and that customer would come in and they would sit there and tell the story. And that was, I think, really valuable to me. The interaction of, the empathy and showing them, what they had happened to them. They would go out and explain in the lot where they got hit and just the emotion involved. There is that connection. It was really important. I think those years really were valuable for me because even when we move to a digital world, you still know those questions to ask. You need to listen to somebody because they do have that story to tell, because everything is a little unique and you can't just automate everything. So yeah, that personal touch really is so important. I totally agree.
The difference as I think about those days, and it's vivid in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we have the ability to hide behind the phone. We have the ability
That's
to
true.
choose not to answer the phone because we've got all these things we need to do, right? Where you
Yeah.
really don't think about the customer on the other side of the line that needs your help. In the
Yeah.
past, when we were adjusters, right, you looked eyeball to eyeball with
Yep.
that person in front of you, and whether that person was in tears or needed to be reassured, you could read body language and you were
Mm-hmm.
able to help. Today, we do not have that capability, right? So I can't stress enough as I meet with our newer folks to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, let's not hide behind that phone. There is somebody on the other side of that line that needs our help, just like your friends and family that have gotten involved in an accident or has a claim as little as a nick on the windshield.
Yeah.
They want your support.
Exactly. So you know what? Tell me about how CSAA specialized service. What's the genesis of it? How did it even start? How did it becoming from an idea to actually execution?
Yeah, I love telling this story, so I'm going to take a little bit of airtime here. So we all remember we had a pandemic in 2020 and
Mm-hmm.
March specifically. The first plan for us was to get our 3,000 or so employees safely working from home.
Mm-hmm.
And that took us 8 days to do. It was remarkable. It was what I call controlled chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you had gone to people in the organization saying we want everybody to work from home and we want it done in a week, there was no way they would say, oh yeah, we can make this happen. So whether it was somebody needing a monitor or a wire or a chair or a monitor or whatever, we were like, go ahead and take it home. Our leadership, our supervisors on the front line helped every single employee on their team get up and running, making sure that safety was our main concern for our own employees before they could serve our policyholders. We pulled that off in 8 days. Can't be more proud of the team. What we realized
Impressive.
soon after that is our claim volume dropped by 65%. To give you a sense of what that feels like is we take roughly 500,000 claims a year, and a 65% drop is a significant drop. We're all human. The first thing that comes to mind when your volume drops by over half is, am I going to be able to keep my job?
Mm-hmm.
Tom Troy, our CEO, who I'm most proud of, came out at the onset saying, we will guarantee jobs for 5 months, whether that is permanent jobs, people working for CSAA, or the people that are contracted to work in the cafeteria or security or facilities or places like that. We guaranteed all jobs. We then ran an innovation challenge to say, how can we grow the company despite the pandemic? And there was this idea where one of my colleagues in Walnut Creek said, the country needed contact tracers to help our communities with the virus. We have resources within operations. Can we merge the two and make it work? My phone rang from Bob Ballier, our COO. He says, Joey, I need you to look at something for us. He says, I don't know if this is a crazy idea or not. And he proceeds to tell me that we want to look to see if we can get into the contact tracing business. And I'll be frank with you, while he's talking to me, I'm Googling what contact tracing was. I had no idea. Bottom line is, I compared the two job descriptions and there was complete alignment. Investigation, customer satisfaction, documentation, de-escalation, all of those medical, right? All of those things were things we did in claims. It was exactly the same thing we could do in the contact tracing world. Long story short, we got into the contact tracing business using our claims and service employees. That the goal was not to make money, the goal was to save jobs, and we absolutely succeeded in it.
Wow, that's impressive.
At the height of the virus, we had returned all 180 resources back to the organization because claims started to, and volume started to come back up. And at the height, we had 420 virtual call center employees taking care of the entire state of Nevada. We were their call center for contact tracing, vaccine support, and appointments. So something that's happened really well. I knew that this would not last forever, thank goodness. And sure enough, it has transitioned out. And since then, we have refocused our attention to growing specialized services in 3 areas. One is contact centers services. Number 2, training as a service. And 3, something near and dear to my heart, which is Claims TPA, right? And that's, we picked those 3 sort of verticals because those were our core competencies, right? We take 4.5 million calls incoming every year. We now have the ability to present that whole infrastructure to the public outside of CSAA, whether it's workforce management or telephony or IT or QA. We have all of that we go to our clients today and say, we can implement a virtual call center for you in as little as 2 weeks.
Wow. So you're saying that the services that you guys master is really the call center, is really in also the TPA side, and those are really the things that you guys mastered and really can take out to other companies in the industry.
Absolutely. So again, right? So in the call center space, we already do it for our incoming calls every year. Claims, we handle end-to-end claims management. And to me, that makes sense. So now we're able to deliver a complete solution, whether on our claim system or the client's claim system or anything in the middle, right? So if somebody needs, for example, subrogation help and don't necessarily need the whole end-to-end, we can do that tomorrow. If
Pieces
somebody
of it,
needs
like the reviews, or actually like collection of in subrogation demands,
actual collection of subrogation.
Oh, wow.
Right. So I like to say we are almost best in class, if not best in class, in subrogation recovery. And NASP tells us that. It's not something, that we've made up. Or sort of first notice of loss, where we're really good at the customer service piece because that's our DNA. The thing that I took for granted, frankly, is offering training as a service.
Okay.
And, Jason and I worked together in my prior role. And I want to say I'm really smart, but the two of you know that I'm not really that smart. Jason, one day way before the pandemic, came to me saying, I'd like to invest in virtual training delivery. And I think I got really lucky, gave him the green light, and he built virtual training capability that he mentioned earlier, where we are now a desired solution because most of the other companies weren't prepared to deliver training virtually, and we do that today.
Wow. I want to dive a little bit apart. You're saying that you could work for other companies. How would it work? Like, let's say, would it be maybe a smaller insurance carrier that doesn't have staff, or how do you work in that way? Would there be a conflict though in some way, or any issues that would come up? But how could you make that work?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I was asked that pretty early on as we decided where would we go. So a couple of things. One is smaller carriers typically need more resources, especially with the weather changing the way it is, where volume spikes are now more significant than ever before. That's one. Number two is we're able to operate after hours, so night and weekend support across the country in all time zones. We can do that. And this whole notion of conflict, I think, is a really interesting one, and I'm glad you brought it up. So if you think of how the insurance industry has evolved, I no longer consider it a conflict where I partner with another insurance carrier for a couple of reasons. One is I think we've all come to realize that repair process or the way you go through process on a claim or direct repair networks and all of that, everybody has it. It's no longer our secret sauce. Our secret sauce are our people. So the way I think of it is if I've got the infrastructure to offer to the industry, and there are companies out there, whether they're the top 20 or whether they're number 200 that need the support to have their own claims department or their own training department, which we can white label at any point in time, why would we not help the industry? So I'll give you a sort of couple of examples that come to mind. Over the years, I think most carriers have outsourced first notice of loss, especially after hours. Why is that not a conflict? Right? So if we were to think of it in the conflict lens, we would say that's a conflict. We had, when we were working out of our centers, we had, you know, both rental companies that we do business with, their own employees in our centers, in our platform, doing rental extensions. Why is that not a conflict, right? When you manage a contract and you do it well, that whole conflict discussion goes out the door.
So you really it's become more of a partnership aspect. You're partnering with the best resources that people that excel at what they do.
I'll give you an example that's really recent, happened day before yesterday, right? So who is our competition? That's a question I ask my team all the time. And I want to say one of our competition folks are other TPAs. And I'll tell you what, that is not necessarily the case. So I'm working with a large TPA right now where they're saying, Joey, if you've got support for first notice of loss, we have more than enough clients that we can send your way.
Wow.
If you do subrogation well, and we don't, because we just added that, bolted that on as a service, and you do it well, you handle it for us. So when I think of competition today, I find very little competition for CSAA specialized services because the way my team and I think of this is strategic partnerships. That's a win for everybody.
That's exciting. And kind of when it goes to the training, Jason, that's another tool that you could be used by other companies, right? I mean, people could, if they don't have the material damage experience or the experience in that, they could work with you. So tell me about how that fits into the picture.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, just to piggyback on Joey's comments, we really do view it as strategic partnership versus competition. So we've got multiple clients today in the IA space, in the carrier space, whereby and I'll circle back to something you said a little bit earlier. You talked about sort of those foundational concepts and those foundational elements of claims handling that are still there today, regardless of all of the technological advancement.
So no matter what you're saying, no matter what happened in technology, those fundamentals you're still seeing in the training side that have to be taught to people.
That's right. And it's not necessarily secret sauce at that point, right? Fundamentals are the same. And so if we have an opportunity to partner with someone based on capabilities and expertise that we have that can be monetized and made available in partnership form to a client out there in the industry, that yes, on the one hand, ultimately enhances their ability and their capability, the reality is they can go other places as well to go get that. Our suggestion is come to us because we think we can do it as well, if not better, than many of the other places that they might be able to go find it anyway.
So what are some of the training that you offer? What are some of the training courses and things that you focus on?
Yeah, so we have an actual platform that's available to our clients. We can also serve up content on their platform. So if they have existing infrastructure, we're happy to work with that, or we can provide the infrastructure to serve up an array of content. We have video libraries and courses, of which many of the courses are also focused on being available and accredited for CE credit, which I think we all know is kind of the currency in many audiences in the insurance industry. But all things auto physical damage, personal lines property, commercial claims handling and commercial physical damage, customer service, leadership. And again, when I say customer service and leadership, those soft skill arenas, we've got emphasis and focus on the insurance industry and on claims handling. They're not, just generic. So really an array of soft skill elements, and then all kinds of technical physical damage spaces, as well as basic claim handling as well. Claims, we call it Claims 101 for auto, Claims 101 for home. So really the gamut we've got available, and we're also more than willing to work in a customized fashion with anybody. If someone's got a more specific need, or a need that we don't have a solution for, we're a full end-to-end learning and design shop. We can consult and analyze with folks and ultimately come together with them with solutions that work for them and land on outcomes that are best for them as well.
Ernie and Jason, you'll remember this. When you started, we were thrown into a 6-week training class in Hayward, California, and that's where we learned, right? That's what we had to do. And what we learned through the pandemic, and probably before that, is more than half of what we learned in class, we forget. That's just the human brain. And what Jason and team has developed, I think, really well, is we now have modules that we get to go and train virtually. They go get to practice and master it and come back for the next course. And so it's not necessarily this whole, white elephant that you get to swallow at one time. The way we deliver training today is in modules that we build with each client, certify them, do assessments so that we know what the learning capability actually is, and then we move on to the next level, to Jason's point, which I thought is very beneficial for operations and employees out there, where we say, well, what again happened? How do I set up salvage? Things like that.
Right. And I like, Jason, what you're talking about. I think it's important is that there's been so much turnover in the industry. A lot of talent has retired, moved on, and the new group of people come in, they benefit from people like yourself and Joey, the people who build that knowledge base, which is basically what this is. And the knowledge transfer that you're able to do with them is so powerful, because I think, when I said I learned in person, Rob Rudder sitting at my desk, you can't do that today because of the way the world is. But if you can get that in that, like you said, digestible format, so powerful. And with the soft skills, I think that's really important too, because in claims, I've always said the moments of uncertainty are what causes problems in customer service. If you can eliminate moments of uncertainty in a claim, keep the customer informed, giving them the path of where their claim's going, and setting, I guess, the expectations, I should say, that's so important. And if you're not trained in that, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think that's where the courses like that and training like that, no matter what technology is involved, if you have that built, that is the key to successful operation. And that's the kind of things that you are building into that program, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. And it really is one of the mantras we have, Ernie, is how do we make virtual personal? You started out our session today talking about, that human touch, right? So regardless of technological advancement, regardless of whatever is coming down the pipe in terms of how the industry needs to continue to evolve, there's still, as Joey said, always going to be the people aspect. Yeah. And that we take that really seriously from a learning perspective as well, in that because people in the insurance industry, whether you're a service agent, a sales agent, a claims adjuster, you name it, you can have all of the technical skill and knowledge training in the world, and you still have to deploy it in a human interaction with people.
I totally agree. And I think that's going to be the thing that separates companies, don't you think? That'll be the
You bet.
separator between companies that go all digital and no human interaction versus the ones that have a good balance in that. I
bet.
think that's going to be huge in the future.
I think we're already starting to see the fallout of that. And there are companies that, OEMs especially, that decided in the past, hey, we're going to go into the insurance business, and quickly failed. And now they're coming to us saying, how can we form a strategic partnership?
Well, that leads me to my next question. So if someone wants to work with you guys, how would they go about it? Like, what's the process that you take, let's say, as a customer? Is it how do you do a consultative approach? How do you find out really what their needs are? And, how do you work with somebody? Give me an example if you want to kind of let us know.
Yeah, another great question. So if you think about us as being a $5 billion company in the top 20 at this point, handling our own claims, paying our own claims, over $3 billion in claims payments, right?
Yeah.
We are not your typical TPA that just spends the client's money.
Right.
The way I sell our services is I consider ourselves more of a thought partner, where I have most of the data, who's best in class, what's your cycle time? I mean, I've got clients today that send me a text saying, Joey, what's cycle time in California for your AAA book? I can answer that in seconds.
Powerful.
Right? Which supports kind of their thought process of how are they doing internally. So yes, we're a service provider, but I believe our secret sauce is not only our people, is our ability to be a thought partner to clients. And frequently in the engagement process at the beginning, you'll see me saying, have you thought about this? And have you thought about that? And have you thought about straight through processing? Because, we all know in claims now that every time you hand off to a different person, I call it an opportunity to drop the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that we have built over time, we now get to sort of offer out to the industry to help as a thought partner.
Yeah, that's exciting. So really, there's so many, and I'm a big believer, there's a lot of companies out there that need this type of help. And I believe they may have certain aspects of their operation running, but they can get those things to fill in the gaps. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Totally. So I'm really excited about what you guys are doing. I've seen some of the training. It's really, really good. And I'm telling you, out there, when I started there, that was my foundation, like I said. And I think there's a lot of exciting things that you can offer. So how can people get a hold of you? Like, let's say they're interested. How would they contact you, Joey or Jason, to get interested? If they're interested, how do they get a hold of you and maybe set up an appointment and see what you have to offer?
No, thanks for that. And selfish plug, I get my hands really dirty with this business. I'm so proud of it. We've started it from the infancy. I plan on seeing it through until we've made $1 billion. So my cell directly is 702-370-5558. Email Joey.daryanani, and I'm sure we'll put that in the bottom of this.
You bet.
At CSAA.com. And the website is www.CSAAspecializedservices.com. And whether it's LinkedIn or however, I think I know people in the industry. People know me. It's a very small industry. It is very easy to reach me directly. I make it that important, where I'm accessible to our clients or potential clients all day, every day.
And Jason, how can I get a hold of you?
Yeah, and same thing with Joey. I'll throw my cell phone out there too, 719-304-1931, and it's Jason.Spafford, my last name, SPAFFORD at CSAA.com. I can also be reached through the website that Joey provided. And I think ultimately, Ernie, we've got a QR code and some other information that we'll display here as well. Lots of different ways that folks can reach out to us. Reach out anytime, and we'll be immediately responsive back to you to begin any discussions that might warrant an opportunity for us to help anybody succeed out there.
And we'll have all this information in the bottom in the show notes on YouTube and also on the podcast. So all that contact information will be available for you at the end of the show here. And I definitely recommend reach out to them because, like I said, that was the basis of my training. There's a lot of expertise here, and I think it's a great opportunity for companies that could utilize these services from CSAA Specialized Services. So, hey, guys, it's great to have you on. Thanks for coming aboard today.
Ernie,
Thanks a lot,
for
Ernie.
me, in closing, while I appreciate that you've taken the time today to allow us to tell our story, um, with people just wanting a consult for us, feel free to call me directly. This is not about revenue generation. I'm more focused on being the thought partner that you need. And if you have any questions or want to just sort of bounce things off us, I've got the team ready to engage. So don't let it be purely about dollars and cents. Happy to provide insights that we can. Thank you again.
You got it. Great having you on.
This has been Focus on Claims with Ernie Bray, President and CEO of ACD.